Good afternoon. My name is Grant Smith. I'm an attorney for Roger Stone. With me today are my co-counsel, Robert Bushell, and our client, Roger Stone. Roger testified today. We started about 9:40 this morning. We went until about 12:30 this afternoon. Took one break. Members of the committee took their turns answering all of the questions, asking all the questions they had, and we answered all of their questions. Roger testified truthfully, honestly, and without hesitation. We spent a lot of time preparing for this. I do not believe the committee asked us any questions that we were not prepared for. They are things that you have widely reported in the past. They are things that would have been expected in this investigation. The committee is doing their job. I believe clearly everybody wants to get to the bottom of this. They want to get to the bottom of it in different ways, but they want to get to the bottom of it. And Mr. Stone was here to offer everything that he had to offer, and we are, happy to have done our part to do it. I believe the feedback that we got was that Mr. Stone was candid and Mr. Stone was jovial and gave context to everything that he has done. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob. Do you have anything else to say? Okay, then I will turn it over to Mr. Stone, who will make a statement and then answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. First of all, I wanted to give you an opportunity all to see fine English tailoring.
Can you step up to the microphone?
Certainly. We had a very frank exchange. I answered all of the questions. I made the case that the accusation that I knew about John Podesta's email hack in advance was false, that I knew about the content and source of the WikiLeaks disclosures regarding Hillary Clinton was false, and that my exchange with someone claiming to be Guccifer 2.0, when viewed through the context, content, and timing, was benign and innocuous. I had an opportunity to correct a number of the things that members of the committee had said about me, which they seemed to take in, and I think this was productive. I expressed my view that I am aware of no evidence whatsoever of collusion by the Russian state or anyone in the Trump campaign or anyone associated with Donald Trump. And I reiterated my view that, in my opinion, Donald Trump has the potential to be both a truly great and transformative president. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Mr. Stone,
Yes, sir.
Told you that he was going to be indicted? That the FBI told him that he was going to be indicted?
I believe his attorneys informed my attorneys of that.
Are you aware of any other type of potential legal action in that realm aside from Mr. Manafort?
I am not.
Have you been contacted in any way, or assume that you might have some potential legal action?
I have not. I have never heard from Mr. Mueller's office, from the FBI, and I only had an initial contact from the Senate Intelligence Committee asking us to preserve records.
Just on the Manafort thing, his attorneys have told your attorneys that he expects to be indicted. Have they given any indication of when?
No, they didn't seem to know. They seem to know neither when or what the charge may be.
And just what happened in there, how much of the question focused on your discussions through an intermediary with Mr. Assange, as well as this discussion over Twitter with Guccifer
A
too?
fair amount.
And
Substantial amount.
Was it mostly from Democrats who were asking those questions, Republicans?
Democrats.
And did you have any other communication with Guccifer too beyond?
None
that
whatsoever, and
direct
I have made that public yesterday. We released the entire exchange, which takes place, I believe, between August 15th and September 9th, many weeks after the publication by WikiLeaks of the DNC material, meaning collusion with Guccifer in the hacking and release of that material would be impossible unless I owned a time machine, which I do not.
Is it still your view that Russians had nothing to do with the hacks of either the DNC or Mr. Podesta?
That is my belief. I subscribe to the view published in The Nation magazine several weeks ago that the computer science seems to indicate an inside job. So I don't know whether the DNC was hacked. I don't know whether at all. I don't know that it was hacked by Russians. And now on the basis of this report, I tend to believe that it was an inside job, meaning the data was downloaded to, say, a thumb drive and spirited out of the building. I would point out that Craig Murray, who is a British diplomat, has said for the record that he received information from the DNC on a thumb drive and passed it to WikiLeaks.
You and the president still communicate. Have you said anything to him about what you plan to say here today? Have you spoken with him at all about this testimony?
I have not. I'm not even sure that he is aware that I was testifying today, although he may have read it in today's Washington Post.
Are you speaking in the Senate committee?
We have no information on that. There is no current schedule to do so.
When was the last
I
time?
would certainly be willing to do so on a voluntary basis. I would require no immunity. I would welcome the opportunity.
Have you not
What-
heard
what was
from
the
Mueller's
last-
office?
Pardon me?
Have you heard from Mueller's office?
I have not.
When was the last time you spoke to the president
Recently.
about any of this
I'm
investigation?
going to decline to characterize it. It was not about this investigation.
Are there any tense moments today or anything that you walked away feeling like just tense or anything that made you uncomfortable?
No, I wouldn't say so. There were certainly some partisan clashes, maybe some disagreements, I would say some differences of opinion, but nothing that made me uncomfortable.
Can you go into detail about what those clashes might be?
I prefer not to. I don't think that members of the committee buy some of my claims, but they have no evidence to the contrary.
Did you ask Adam Schiff directly to apologize to you?
I did not, because the length of my testimony, which included that stuff, went over, and I was only afforded 5 minutes.
And did any of it, you asked for in your statement, you asked for Swalwell and Spear also.
Yes.
Did they apologize?
I'm not holding my breath.
Did you decline to say who your intermediary was?
Yes, I did.
Did you decline to answer any other questions?
No, that's the only question I declined to answer.
You delivered some pretty harsh assessments of Adam Schiff and the Democrats Committee. Does your opinion on him still hold? Has it changed at all that you interacted with him?
Well, Mr. Castro seems like a very nice guy, but beyond that, my opinion has largely not changed.
Did you get pushback from the committee when you declined the ID or any of the hearing?
Yes, they would like me to do so. I told them that I would consider it. Now, the reason I am not submitting that name is because the intermediary is a journalist and our conversation was off the record. I'm an opinion journalist. He's a journalist. I'm not going to burn somebody who I spoke to off the record. If he releases me, if he allows me to release it, I would be happy to give it to the committee. I'm actually going to try to do that.
Mr. Stone, you and Michael Caputo have both come here and in your statements, either before or afterwards, said to the effect you've asked for apologies. You've said that members of the committee have sort of smeared your character. By and large, do you look at this as a serious exercise?
No, I think it's an entirely political exercise. Look, they make the charges against you in a public forum for maximum coverage to benefit their U.S. Senate campaign or their re-election, but then they only allow you to respond behind closed doors, and they won't even allow the release of a transcript. It really puts you at an extraordinarily unfair advantage. In the case of Michael Caputo, he attended the session, answered all questions truthfully, and then Congresswoman Spear came back and maligned him, said that he had perjured himself. I don't believe that that's true.
Mr. Stone, do you think that the president should fire Bob Mueller?
Yes,
Why is that?
because he auditioned, or I should say interviewed for the job of FBI director the day after Mr. Comey resigned, or was fired, pardon me, was passed over for that job. That, to me, constitutes a conflict.
And have you made that recommendation directly to the president?
I have not. But I've written it, I've said it on Infowars.com, I've said it, I've written it in the Daily Caller. The president may be aware of my view.
What was the disposition of the Republicans in the committee? Were they arguing on your behalf?
No, I think they were trying to do their job and write a fair report. There were some clashes between the Republicans and the Democrats about the appropriateness of some questions. Giant, overall, it was pretty collegial.
Which questions?
Mr. Gowdy asked me directly if I had any knowledge of Russian collusion with any member of the Trump campaign, the Trump family, Donald Trump, Trump associates, Trump friends, Trump supporters. And I said no. Mr. Schiff said, well, we could ask the same question of Vladimir Putin. And Mr. Gowdy took exception to that.
In your opinion, that whatever this committee decides or whatever their report says is something that you could actually trust? Do you feel as though after coming to them that you could trust their conclusions?
I believe I was fairly treated, if that's your question. I obviously reserve judgment until I see the final report, but the entire exchange was completely professional. Everybody was courteous. I have no complaints about anyone's conduct.
Have you spoken with Mr. Manafort about the FBI raid on his house?
Yes, he believes, as I do, that it is outrageous. They not only took away 2 folders of documents, all of which they already had, but they photographed all of his custom Italian suits in his closet. I cannot imagine for what reason.
Better tailored, you or Mr.
It's English tailoring is always better than Italian tailoring, at least for my body shape.
Do you know what Manafort may be indicted for?
I don't, and neither does he, based on my brief conversation.
And you have said you believe he is not guilty of what he might be indicted for. Do you have, why is that?
Well, because I think what's happening here is that the special counsel will try to manufacture a crime and then say, look, Manafort, we won't prosecute you for this if you simply admit you were colluding with the Russians and Donald Trump knew everything. In other words, bear false witness against the president. I've known Paul Manafort for over 40 years, and I don't believe he is going to do that. He is not going to lie, and that would be a lie.
But you're not familiar with his finances, his taxes?
Most certainly not. I'm sure that they're far more extensive and complicated than mine. But I have no idea what charge he could be indicted on or whether that charge is provable, fair. I don't know.
Did they ask you to come back later? Is this the end of your...
There was no discussion of coming back, although I'd certainly be open to it under the right circumstances.
Have you had any communications with Michael Flynn at all?
I have not. I don't know General Flynn. All right. Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Ranking member